Richard Thompson is an Ivor Novello award-winning and Grammy Award-nominated guitarist, singer, and songwriter. His widely beloved early work with the band Fairport Convention was celebrated as a reimagination of British folk traditions, and his duet albums and performances with former partner Linda Thompson are legendary, from their first I Want to See the Bright Lights Tonight, which was released in 1973, all the way to Shoot Out the Lights in 1982. I first connected with Richard's music through 1991's Rumor and Sigh and worked my way backwards. It's been a joy to keep moving forward too, as he's continued creating and performing new music steadily all the way through, releasing his 19th solo album entitled 13 Rivers in 2017. Jay Mascis is a musician, a multi-instrumentalist, producer, and film composer, best known as the frontman of the influential indie rock trio Dinosaur Jr. Influential is perhaps one word. Others come to mind. He began making music as a founding member of the hardcore band Deep Wound until co-founding Dinosaur Jr. in 1984. After a 10-year hiatus, Dinosaur Jr. reformed in 2007, and he's continued making music with that band, solo, with The Fog, and numerous other groups and projects as strike his fancy. If you're on this Zoom with us tonight, you know this already, but Richard and Jay have also each achieved quite a bit of respect for their respective abilities on the electric guitar. They're together tonight to discuss Richard Thompson's new memoir, Beeswing, Losing My Way and Finding My Voice, 1967 to 1975. It is beyond a pleasure to welcome Jay Mascis and Richard Thompson.
Right.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you. Hello, Jay. How are you doing?
All right. Here it's a bit late over there where you are.
Yeah, I'm in London, so it's 2 in the morning, and I'm not sure if this is, am I staying up late or am I getting up early? I don't know. It's one or the other.
So yeah, that's why did you guys turn from covering American songs, and then deciding to find all these old English songs and get away from the American stuff?
I think we felt a bit secondhand always, where we felt like we were taking someone else's culture and adapting it, and as all the English bands did at that time, really. And we thought that, I think when the band album came out, the band album came out, Big Pink came out, we thought, well, this is everything that really we would strive for if we were going to go in that direction. It's got all the ingredients of great American music. It's got all these connections to all these different roots, and blends them seamlessly. They write great songs that kind of in that blended style. We're never going to be that good, so why don't we try to play a style of music at which we can excel, at which we can be the best. And we've been playing some traditional music, some British traditional music, but playing it with amplified instruments. And we thought, well, why don't we do more in this direction? And so that really became, first of all, an experiment, I think, and then it became really the language of music that we adopted and stayed with. And I'm still there, really. I'm still somewhere between British traditional and rock and roll. That's been my style for the last 150 years, or however long it is.
And I did, in the book you said Hendrix had something to do with that, seeing him come over.
I think so. I think all the British guitar players were quite intimidated by Hendrix. He could always go that bit further, than anybody else. And I think as a guitar player, I felt, well, I can't compete with Hendrix, but maybe I'll just do something different. I'll just take a different course. I'll try and have, my own style. I'll try and have an individualistic style. So that was really, the aim anyway. After seeing Hendrix.
Yeah, I quite liked the blues being sold back to me from England. Like, I couldn't relate to any American blues, but I liked it, when I heard, the Stones playing it, or, I liked hearing Mick Jagger singing in English in a country Western accent somehow. That,
yeah. I think a lot of people felt the same as you. I think a lot of people from the northern United States were hearing R&B through a through this European filter that was more accessible somehow. Maybe then when they'd heard the Rolling Stones, that they could go back to him, Muddy Waters or something.
No, I never went back. I just
He never went back. He's
I just liked the English versions, but
yeah. I don't know how you describe Mick Jagger's American accent. It's kind of it's elusive.
yeah, it just sounded like, oh, that's the way you sing, I guess. I don't know. It's just to me,
Yeah, yeah.
and
Well,
I like that you sold me the merry-go-round. I love that song when you guys played it. I had never heard that band before.
yeah, Emmett Rhodes band, terrific band, really good. I think they only made 2 albums, and then Emmett kind of decided he didn't want to be in the music business and became more of an engineer and producer. But I did have the privilege of playing on his album, his last album, before he passed away.
Oh well,
So it kind of came full circle. It was so nice to meet him. I really liked him. I could see that he could possibly be a bit of a curmudgeon, though. Yes, and perhaps there are reasons that he didn't take to the music business.
and I think you also softened Joni Mitchell for me. Like I heard you doing I don't know where I stand with Sandy on some BBC session, and suddenly
Yeah.
I could get into Joni then from that.
Oh, good. Well, okay, that's good. Well, we got hold of Joni's demos through our producer Joe Boyd, who knew her. So we got her acetates before she'd made a record. They were kind of demos. So we got maybe a half a dozen or dozen Joni Mitchell songs, and we covered 3 or 4 of them, I think, at various times. Yeah.
Yeah, it sounded a bit too intense for her voice or something. For me, just cold without having it filtered down a little bit first, I think.
Yeah.
And were you, I was wondering from the book, why were you so disappointed in grape juice when you came to America? And have you ever gotten a taste for it since?
Not American grape juice. No, it just tasted foul. It tasted. It probably isn't processed, but it tasted that processed through some strange chemical filters. I'd eaten a grape in my time. Not many. Well, we didn't see many grapes in England.
Yeah.
After World War II. So a grape was a rare thing, but a grape was a kind of a delicious thing, and American grape juice was just weird. It was just strange. What Welch's grape juice
Yeah.
just seemed impossible, unpalatable, unacceptable. I've since had grape juice that I did like. There's some German stuff you can get here in the UK, which is very nice, very nice indeed.
Was your dad in the war then?
Was he?
Was he in the war?
He was in the war. Yeah, he was. Yeah, well, at the beginning of the war, he was in the police, and then he joined the army. And he was in the Blitz in London, and then he went. He was a rifle instructor, and then on D-Day he was in Montgomery's army, and he ended up in Antwerp. He was in Antwerp until 1947, and until a couple of years after the war actually finished. I think it's a bit like The Third Man. You know that film with Orson Welles in.
Yeah.
Which is actually set in Vienna, where they're kind of it's like contraband and murder and rounding up Nazis and all that kind of stuff. I think he was doing that stuff in Antwerp until about 47. So yeah, he was in the war. Yeah.
Yeah.
But one of the nicest things about him being in Antwerp was he came home with a bunch of French records, really great records from that period. Edith Piaf, Charles Trenet, Jean Sablon. It was just a golden era of French music. French singer-songwriters, particularly, were wonderful then. I think rock and roll kind of killed French music in many ways.
Did he ever talk about the war or any?
Only a bit. He was in something shady.
Yeah.
So he was bound by the Official Secrets Act. He wasn't supposed to talk about it until 50 years after the war. And then he was also bound, like when he left the police force, he was bound by the Official Secrets Act for that as well. So
Yeah.
he didn't talk too much about it. No.
Yeah, my dad was in World War II, and I never heard a word about it. So I wondered if ever some fathers would talk about it, or
I'm sure some fathers would. I think for a lot of them it was very traumatic.
I'm sure.
Mm.
Can we talk about your guitars from the early days?
Oh, okay. Yep, sure.
What was your guitar? I know you got the 175, but what was the guitar you had before that?
Before the 175, I had a Hofner. Hofner were German guitars. They didn't quite get the rock and roll thing quite right.
Yeah.
They didn't get the jazz thing quite right either, to tell you the truth. So that they were better known for these big-bodied, jazz guitars, but they were never as good as Gibsons, and their pickups weren't particularly good. But I had a Hofner 3 pickup solid body thing. They actually made great noises. It really sounded very good. Just the neck was very thick. The neck was a bit too chunky. But I wish I still had it.
Then
I miss it.
what happened to the 175 then?
175 I gave to Simon Nicol, who's the rhythm guitarist in the band.
Yeah.
We decided that because he was playing a Fender, and we decided maybe if he played the 175, it would be a better contrast to whatever I was playing. So we were thinking very sonically there.
Ah, nice. And is that when you got the gold top Les Paul?
We got a gold top Les Paul. That was fun. That was a great guitar. In those days you had to sell a guitar to afford the next one. Sadly, I'd like to hang on to all of those guitars. Yeah. But then I sold the Les Paul to John Martin, who had it stolen like the next day almost. I mean, or immediately had it stolen.
Oh, great.
And then I got a Fender Stratocaster, and I've been kind of Fenderish ever since. Strats and Tellers and things. Yeah.
Seems like everybody from England ended up with a Strat, after going through Gibsons and.
Well, disappointingly, I think Eric Clapton should never have played a Strat. It just sounds wrong to me.
Yeah.
I mean, he's a thoroughbred, Les Paul man, as far as I'm concerned, and should always have stayed with that instrument.
Yeah, I didn't like his sport jacket look either. I think that went with the Strat.
Yeah. We have to be very careful what you wear if you play a Strat. It's pretty crucial. Yeah. And any kind of tailoring, I think, is out of the question.
And then when you were playing with Linda, what acoustic did you use then?
Playing with Linda, because I had a Martin Triple O.
The one on the cover of your first album.
Yeah, 0018. I've just refurbished it a bit. Actually, I've just saved it from the breaker's yard, and I've stuck some new tuners on it and cleaned it up a bit, and I'm playing it again. Sounds great. Sounds really good.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, it's a nice old guitar, 66 Martin, which is now getting old, isn't it? Got that 16 toms. Bloody hell. Yeah. Wow.
And then when did the Loudon come into play?
Somewhere in the 80s. I was playing a show in Washington, D.C., and a guy came out from the guitar center, and he said, "You have to play this guitar. It'll suit your style down to the ground." And it was a Loudon F32, and so I played it, and I thought, "This is great! Wow, gosh." So I bought that one, and I've been playing them ever since, really. And I have a signature model at Loudon, which is lovely, which is a really nice guitar. They just make great guitars.
Was there anything between the Martin and the Loudon, or?
Not really, no.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm very happy to pick up other guitars for other projects. I've got a big Gibson J200, which is nice sometimes in the studio, just for playing rhythm. You know,
Yeah.
the Loudon could be seen as more of a finger picking guitar, but I think if you just want to kind of strum and get that compressed kind of strum sound, a different guitar is sometimes a good idea.
When you were doing the album with Jeff Tweedy, did you end up playing a lot of his guitars?
Well, you sort of have to, don't you, really? um, well, for people who don't know, you know, Wilco have got this loft in Chicago, like 2 floors of industrial space, and the lower floor is all the touring gear. That's where that lives. And the upper floor, which is about the size of a hockey rink, is just jammed with instruments. You know, so there's God knows how many guitars,
Yeah.
hundreds of amps, hundreds of keyboards, hundreds of basses, hundreds of everything, and so if you're thinking, God, I'd love to get a kind of a Les Paul sound on this. Oh, there's a row of 6 Les Pauls there. I'll drag one of those down. Or I want to get sort of jazzy sound. Oh, there's about 15 jazz guitars. I'll try one of those. So it was tempting, to say the least, to grab something off the wall during the making of that record and try different sounds, and different amps as well. It was a lot of fun working in that space.
Yeah. Do you ever buy old guitars hoping there are songs in them somewhere from the past?
Um, well, I'd like to. I don't own that many guitars. I don't have the space to be a collector in that sense. So I like to play the ones that I've got. But I know what you mean about that. I mean, sometimes I love to go in a guitar shop and just try to get a sound out of any old guitar. You know, every guitar has got something. If you can just find the right tuning, sometimes you have to open tune it, or you know, to get it to resonate. But I believe in every song. In every guitar there is a song, or two, or three, or 100.
So you could then justify buying hundreds of guitars.
Yeah, I think that's, you could justify doing that. Yeah, if you had the storage space, you could absolutely
Yeah.
justify buying everything.
And I notice you don't switch guitars much live. You kind of
Yeah, yeah. Well, I think it's quicker. That's all. I think like if you want to be in a tuning or something, it's sometimes just quicker to just retune the guitar you've got. There's a few things. I mean, I play 12 strings sometimes, so I'll switch up for that.
Yeah.
And sometimes I break strings as well, so I'll switch up for that. But I don't like, you know, those people who have a different guitar for every song.
Yeah.
I think that's far too pretentious, really. That should not be allowed. It should be actually a law against that, of some sort. I don't like to see that. It's ugly. It's against the basic principles of rock and roll, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What about effects? What was the first effect you got?
Oh, definitely a fuzz of some sort. Didn't sound very good. I can't remember who built it. I think it's the same guy built Jimmy Page's or something. Or no, the same guy built Jeff Beck's. And it was very sort of nasty, you know, square wave, almost fuzz box. And I think at some point I traded that in. I think the next one was a Fender Blender, and they didn't sound very good either. They sounded pretty crap. And I think eventually I just thought it was better to overdrive the amps. um, than to use a pedal. Until the pedals got better, anyway. At some point, I think by the 80s, that actually had a lot more tone to them. But it's an endless quest. I mean, I still try out new pedals. It goes on forever. I mean, there's so many people making pedals, and everyone sounds slightly different, which is curious, and sometimes you just find the ones that work for you. I like the OCD pedal to use with a Fender guitar. It just seems to have the right the right overtones to suit a Fender.
But even in that, there's all the different versions of the OCD. And
Oh, that's true. Yeah. Well, just whichever one I've got is the one I like.
Right. Yeah, I was interested in the looking at the pictures in the book, that your sister was very pretty, and I wondered what it was like to have a attractive sister as a young kid. I know you said that some of her boyfriends gave you guitar lessons, but were there any other advantages you?
I mean, a pretty sister. Not really. I mean, the boyfriends was the great advantage. I mean, I suppose I thought she was pretty. Yeah. I mean, yeah, I don't think you ever think your own sister is like a knockout, but
Yeah.
she, I mean, she cultivated that sort of Bridget Bardot thing,
Right.
as much as she could, from a very young age. I just had lunch with her today, actually, which was nice. And but the boyfriends were great. I mean, a couple, two or three of her boyfriends played guitar, so I did get free guitar lessons, which was great. I mean, that got me started, really.
I was wondering, what was the diet of a vegetarian in England in the 60s?
I think sort of sawdust, cardboard. Um, not a lot of nutrition. I mean, I ate really badly when I first became a vegetarian.
Yeah.
And well, one of the singers in one of the other bands said, we'll watch out for your diet. Here's some stuff you should be eating. Here's some recipes. You need to get enough protein, blah blah blah. So I got healthy. I mean, I was vegetarian for about 5 years, I think.
Yeah.
And then I broadened my diet a bit. I mean, I still don't eat that much meat. I eat fish. I eat a little bit of white meat. That's about it.
Yeah, I noticed when I first went to England, there were a lot of vegetarians, and they all seemed to eat just chips. Was like the main.
Yeah, I think that will be your main source of nutrition if you're a British vegetarian. Yes, chips, grease, which is a wonderful source of
Yeah.
of many vitamins. Yeah. I think things have improved slightly since then. Not too much, slightly.
Yeah. Were you excited to hear that Sandy Denny was going to be on a Led Zeppelin album?
I didn't know about it until after the fact. Yeah. Well, in those days, I mean, Led Zeppelin were they weren't legends that they became later. They were just like another band. So when I heard about it, I wasn't particularly impressed. I thought, well, that's nice, good for her. But these days people say, oh my God, Led Zeppelin.
Yeah.
You knew Led Zeppelin, you played with Led Zeppelin. But then they were just people on the same circuit as us, and to whom we were acquainted anyway, to some extent.
Did you like their music when it came out, or were you?
Yeah, I did. I liked a lot of it. Yeah, I thought the first couple of albums were interesting. I thought Bonham was a really great drummer. That was probably my main impression. And when Zeppelin sat in with us at the Troubadour in LA, Robert Plant sang so loud. I couldn't believe how loud he sang. He didn't really need a microphone, but he had one anyway. And it was recorded, when we listened to the tapes, you couldn't hear the drums on his vocal mic. But he was standing right in front of the drums, but you couldn't actually hear them. He was singing so loud. Yeah,
When's that
great
album
band.
coming out?
Beg your pardon?
When's that album coming out? Yeah.
Well, no one can find the tapes.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, the tapes kind of disappeared at some point from the A&M vaults.
Yeah, I noticed.
I'd like to hear them.
Yeah, I noticed like slightly older musicians in England, like Pete Townsend and Keith Richards, always say how they hated Zeppelin. They thought they were kind of a joke band or something. And I noticed that through the years, how a couple of years can make a band seem awesome or just like you don't get it at all.
Mm. Yeah, true. Well, what can I say? Yeah. Well, the Who were a really great band. I think extraordinary band. I used to see the Who in a little club in their earlier years, and that was quite something. That was really extraordinary. All great musicians and playing great music. The Stones I saw quite earlier. I didn't think that they were very good. I thought the best blues band were probably Shel Davis All Stars were probably the best British blues band. But they only cut 4 sides. So Cyril died quite young, so we lost him.
Who was their guitar player?
Various guitar players. It's mostly a guy called Jeff Bradford, who was actually a great, probably more of a country blues player than a Chicago kind of player. But he did both.
Why did you decide to stop the book in 75?
Well, I stopped playing in 76 for a while. I sort of hit burnout point, I think. I just needed to do something else for a while. So, I mentioned that in the afterword, but I didn't want to really write about that year.
Yeah.
It seemed a bit anticlimactic. And the next few years, I don't think I made good records. So 77 to 80, I thought was not really a period I wanted to write about with any enthusiasm. And it wasn't until 81 that things picked up again as far as I was concerned. But perhaps that's volume 2, or maybe someone else writes volume 2. I don't know. Perhaps that wouldn't be me.
Yeah. No plans for volume 2?
Not really. I don't know what I do. The thing is that was a very intense period that I wrote about, and I think after then things just spread out more. I mean, there's a lot of anecdotes you could tell, but another 250 pages would be like the next 25 years or the next 30 years of being on the road. And those sort of doorstop rock musician biographies, I get a bit bored, 2/3 of the way through, like Pete Townsend's or Keith Richards or something.
Yeah.
The excitement kind of tapers off and it becomes a bit more, sedate and they go into award shows all the time and somehow when you do things for the first time, it's a lot more exciting and it's a lot more vivid and you just remember it more clearly. And I think that's true of the first third of Keith Richards' book or something. It's very, very intense and very vividly told. So I didn't want to taper off. And other volumes, well, we'll see. I don't know. I'll see how I feel. If I start selling more books than records, then I'll switch careers.
Yeah. I was interested in your Ouija board times. It seems like, the Ouija board, you're kind of accessing the dregs of the spirit world or something.
Yeah, it seemed to be that way. I found it, sometimes very disturbing. Whatever it is, whatever you think it is, it can be absolutely unnerving sometimes. Uh, yes, you might get the dregs of the spirit world. I think occasionally we got something like really powerful, something that we couldn't handle, and
Yeah.
yeah, and I thought it was quite scary actually. So I stopped doing that stuff.
Was
Didn't want to mess with it.
yeah, probably best
Mm,
not to.
yeah.
Um, are you doing the camp this year?
We are doing guitar camp. Yes. Obviously, we didn't do it last year. So what we're doing, yeah, I mean, camp we'll be a bit more spread out, I think. But we're hoping for lots of people to come. I think it'll be great. We got some good instructors. We've got Tiff Merritt's going to teach songwriting, which would be nice. John Doyle teaching guitar, great Irish guitarist. And lots of our usual people, and a lot of my family will be
Yeah.
teaching. Yeah.
Yeah, we tried out we did a camp there not like 2 years ago, and I think we're gonna do it this summer again.
Oh, fantastic. Good. Yeah.
If you got any camp tips, the first one was a bit hectic. I think we overbooked everything or something.
Yeah. As is always hectic. It's been hectic the last 8 years.
Yeah,
We always book too much, but I think that's fun. It's nice to give people more than they can possibly attend.
right.
So we always have just too many teachers. Just too many things happening at once. Things going on in the lunch hour, so you can eat or you can go to this great thing. What we love to overbook everything. But it's funny. It's a beautiful location, isn't it?
Yeah, I've been to a wedding there before too. It was pretty
Oh,
nice.
really? Mm.
So, what did you think of punk when it came out? And did you know about Hugh Cornwall and the Stranglers when he'd started? And
Well, I knew about Hugh. Yeah, I hadn't seen him for a long time. I hadn't seen him since we left school.
yeah,
So I hadn't seen him for like 10 years at that point. But then I saw he was in the Stranglers, and I thought, oh, that's interesting. Well, I like punk. I thought punk was a breath of fresh air. UK music at that point, sort of 77 was prog rock, which I found like kind of overblown, pompous, metal, which I found overblown and pompous, glam rock, which I found overblown and pompous, and punk was kind of stripped down and stripped back. And I thought, well, this is closer to what rock and roll should be. This is closer to the origins of rock and roll. Whatever that energy was at the beginning, this is a kind of revival of it. Punk was a bit snottier, it's a bit more antisocial, but I think the energy was the same, really. So
yeah.
I loved it.
And so you've connected with Hugh since then.
Yeah, I hadn't actually seen him for 40 years since we left school. So 40 years, so 68, 78, 88, 98, 2008-ish. We were both on the same festival in Spain. And we said hello, and it was like we had like we just picked up where we left off, and we've been seeing each other ever since, which is great. We've been in touch ever since.
Did you get the band back together?
We did, sort of. I did a concert 2 years ago in London at the Albert Hall, and I got Hugh up, and we did a song that we last played in 1964, probably. So we played that one. Then we played like a Stranglers hit, like Peaches, which is
Yeah,
a great song. So I think the answer is yes. We kind of did put the band back together again, or two of the band anyway.
Yeah. So should we take questions from the audience?
Yeah, that'd be interesting. Do we have any questions from the audience?
We
have an
do.
audience?
Am I back up? So the first one says, thanks for all the years of music and poetry, Richard. I'm truly grateful for your art. You've been playing in front of crowds for so long. How have your audiences changed over time?
They've gotten older, inevitably. Well, it's nice, some people actually have been staying the course since 1967. I do have fans who are my age, who've just been there for the whole journey, which is fantastic. I applaud them. If I get to meet them, I do give them a medal from my collection. Younger people are now filling in as well. So the age range has got bigger over the years. How have they changed? I mean, we started out playing 18 years old, but playing to a young audience that has a lot of energy. And at some point, that those same people reach an age where they want to sit down. They don't want to stand up anymore. And I'd always rather play to a standing audience, always. But at some point, you have to compromise. And in some ways, the best venue is the one where people who want to sit down maybe in the balcony or something, and the people who want to stand up on the floor, and that's the best combination. You get the energy of standing people, and for those whose knees are giving out at this point, like mine, then they get to sit down. But I think audiences have been pretty consistent, really. Audiences listen sometimes when I'm playing an acoustic show. Audiences will listen very, very carefully to the show, which is great. I love that. And, they appreciate the rockers as well. God bless them.
I have a question. What do you need from a producer? Has there been a producer who shocked you at what you've been able to discover working with them?
What you need from a producer, you need whatever you're missing. Perhaps you need a producer who is more technically adept. So, do you need a producer who really understands song structure? Do you need someone who can get you a hit? Someone who understands how to, really work on the hooks and all that kind of stuff, like a commercial producer. Personally, I don't mind producing myself. I can do that. Sometimes it's nice to get another pair of ears into the project. Recently I've worked with Buddy Miller in Nashville, and that was great. I worked with Jeff Tweedy a couple of years ago, and that was great. Jeff Tweedy is someone who's very good at the actual song, about saying, you've got a verse too many there, or drop a couple of beats there, to change the bass drum pattern, that kind of thing. He's very good at actually making the song work, which not every producer can do that. In the studio, there's various roles that you need to cover, and sometimes engineers are producers, sometimes producers are engineers, sometimes artists can engineer themselves, and maybe they'll get a producer in just as another pair of ears. I mean, it's whatever's lacking, really, or whatever you need to complete that picture. And roles really do overlap these days, and the days of the Beatles or something where George Martin was very distinctly the producer, and the engineer was very distinctly the engineer. I think those days you can still have that, but I think roles really do overlap, but people multitask a lot more these days, and you can do it all yourself. You can do everything yourself if you want to.
The next one I have is, what is a favorite memory of those early Who shows? Who are some of your favorite current performers?
Early Who shows. Well, I used to see the Who in a club called the Marquee Club, which was started out as a jazz club, started by a guy called Chris Barber, and it became just a great rock and roll venue in the '60s. And the Who had a residency there every Tuesday. The Yardbirds were Friday. You get people like Spencer Davis Group with Steve Winwood would be played there. The Nice played there. The Move played there. The Move had a residency there as well. Gary Farr and the T-Bones. I mean, just really, really great bands. And you know, and I go on a school night. I go and see the Who. And you know, imagine all that power that they had. That they used in a stadium. Well, imagine that in a very confined space of maybe 300 people. They were great visually. They had all these kind of pop art ideas that Pete came up with. I thought Keith Moon was a fantastic drummer because you think he's doing so much, he's lost the beat, but he never lost the beat. He was always right on the beat. Always came back to it, and Entwistle was a great bass player, extremely adept. Fluent bass player, and Pete was one of the great, I mean, one of the great rhythm guitar players, and one of the inventors of modern electric guitar playing. Really, that whole choppy rhythm style that maybe started out coming from the Kinks. Pete kind of took over and took that into another place, where he became a very influential teacher of that to everybody. So yeah, Impressions of the Who, just a really incredible band. One of my other favorite live bands ever, Neville Brothers. Neville Brothers, maybe in the '80s, absolutely knocked my socks off. They were so great. The band, I saw the band several times, and they were fantastic as well. Yeah, I could go on for hours, but more questions, please.
No problem. How does your knowledge of and experience with old music inform the music that you write for yourself, your original music?
Well, they say, what's the cliche? That if you don't know history, then you're bound to repeat it. If you know the history of music, then you know what's been done. And sometimes when you go backwards, you hear things and you think, that's such a great idea. Well, why did that idea go away? I should revive that idea. So in exploring old music, I used to do this show called 1,000 Years of Popular Music, and we had to do a lot of research for that show. So what we go right back to 1000 AD and try and dig stuff out, try and decipher old manuscripts, listen to records and see if there's anything interesting there. And we'd always find great stuff. I mean, really great stuff, and stuff that was not that well known, because there's lots out there. I mean, just think of all those centuries of music, and all that music being written in those centuries. So it's always fascinating. And yes, sometimes you do stumble on things that do inspire you. And I mean, for instance, I was looking at music of the troubadours. Troubadours that, like, like 12th century French, Southern French singer-songwriters. And I was looking at their verse structure, and I think, well, that's really interesting. They're not going A B A B. They're using these really bizarre verse patterns, and I thought, that's great. I must try that myself. And so I wrote a song in it with a kind of a troubadour verse pattern that I thought was kind of interesting and original. So you can learn a lot anyway, going back to history of music.
Richard, I don't write these questions. I just ask them. Someone wants to know, what does unhalf-bricking mean?
Unhalf-bricking, I explain it in the book. You'll have to buy the book, of course.
Buy the book.
The official explanation. It was a word game. It was a game called Super Ghosts, which the Algonquin Circle used to play. Thurber and E.B. White and these people, Dorothy Parker. clever people. And you know, you make a word a letter at a time, and you pass it around, and you mustn't complete a word. So as soon as you're about to complete a word, you have to think very fast on your feet and come up with some prefix or something that stops it being completed. So unhalf bricking was such a word. I think Sandy came up with that one. So she suggested that there was such a word. There really isn't, but anyway, you know.
And there's no, you're not going to give me a metaphor for the creative process around that record or anything. It was just a game you enjoyed.
Yeah, just a stupid game. You know, but before we all had, you know, phones and computers, we used to have to talk to each other in the van and play stupid games. Really.
There's a question that I don't know if you care to elaborate, but someone asks if you have perspective on the decline and on Sandy's decline.
I didn't see Sandy much in the last years of her life. My then wife Linda spoke to her a lot on the phone because Sandy would ask questions about babies because she just had a baby, and Linda had had a couple at that point, so she could give Sandy some advice. But it never sounded good on the phone. I mean, it didn't sound like Sandy was really on top of things. It sounded a lot like she was kind of losing control. She was drinking, she was taking drugs as a young mother, which is kind of scary. You know, she'd leave the baby, you know, on top of the car and forget about it and stuff. You know, I mean, really not good things. So Sandy was clearly, you know, having like a, you know, a substance crisis, if you like, on top of everything else. And when I heard that she'd you know, was in a coma, she'd fallen down the stairs and was in a coma that she never actually came out of. I was just heartbroken. I mean, it was so tragic. I think she was 31 when she died. Far too young, you know, far too talented. But I don't know if she could have gone on. I mean, I think life was too much for her in some ways.
Yeah. This is an awkward pivot, but I guess it's inevitable with so little time. Some years back at a meet and greet in Seattle, you mentioned you were in a book group that read mystery novels. Any great recommendations?
Mystery novels. Okay.
Are you still reading mystery novels?
Reading mystery novels. Okay, Margaret Miller. Margaret Miller, who was married to Ross MacDonald, who wrote, you know, loads and loads of great detective fiction, sort of LA-based detective fiction. I think she wrote a book called The Beast in View. The Beast in View. I'd recommend that one off the top of my head. I'd have to. It's 3 a.m. and I can't quite think too clearly about any others, but try that one.
Sounds good. And with that in mind, actually, I've got one last, and then I'd love to throw it to you, Jay, if you've got a final one to take us home. One audience question: when can we hope to see you in Seattle? Any plans for a visit anytime soon?
Hopefully. I mean, I am getting some bookings. I don't have a West Coast run in yet, I don't think. I think it's going to be next year. I think it's going to be 2022. But I'm thrilled to get back on the road, and I shall be very, very excited to get back to Seattle.
Fantastic. We'd love to have you. Jay, I didn't mean to put you on the spot. Anything we didn't get to cover that you want to make sure we air before the end of our time together?
I guess when you peeked in Joni Mitchell's songbook, did you steal any lyrics out of there?
No, I didn't steal anything really. No, I was just curious. I wanted to see what her writing was like, really, like a handwriting, and I wanted to see if she did doodles, you know, like Sandy did in her notebook, and she did. I mean, she's very visually artistic. So I took some inspiration for that, but I shouldn't have looked really. It's very, very naughty of me, and I never managed to spend enough time with Joni at any point to apologize. Perhaps it's better not to say anything.
Yeah. You still got time.
Yeah, well, but I think I'll still I still keep my mouth shut on that one.
Well, good. Fortunately, this isn't on the internet or anything, so no one
Oh,
will
good.
ever
Okay,
think you're
fine.
safe
Yeah,
with. Yeah.
great.
I want to thank everybody for joining us tonight. I want to thank Megan Jasper at Sub Pop for having had the great idea that this conversation could happen and having helped make it so, because it's been wonderful. Jay, I want to thank you for that fantastic interview, the kind of interview you only give when you're talking to someone whose work you really admire and enjoy and are speaking kind of from a very direct place. So thank you for being a part of this tonight and making it so fantastic. And Richard, I just want to thank you for all the music you've given us and for being such a great subject and being the kind of person who can speak both with virtuosity and with such honesty and such presence. Made for a really lovely conversation tonight. So thank you both.
Well, thank you so much. And thank you for doing this, Jay. I really appreciate it.
All right, thanks a lot.
So the book is called Beeswing, everyone, and it is available for sale lots of places, but we sincerely hope you'll purchase it from our friends at Third Place Books using the conveniently located button somewhere on your internet interface. And you'll have an opportunity to hear Richard soon, and I bet you'll have an opportunity to hear Dinosaur Jr. probably pretty soon too. Jay, is that in the offing?
Yeah, hopefully if things go well with the pandemic.
Okay, so good luck to everyone. Let's hope that things go well with the pandemic and we all get to enjoy their music soon. Thank you both so much. We'll see you all
Thank you.
soon. Bye-bye.